Well, I feel like it's easy to incorporate into your routine. So if we're talking from like a functional standpoint, a lot of people have that walking routine. Maybe you're taking the kids out for a walk, meeting a friend, taking the dogs, for example. It's like you can throw on a little bit of extra weight. It's weight bearing. It's low impact. So you were talking about the joints compared to something like running. It's so much nicer on your joints, and you can get a similar cardiovascular burn too.
Welcome to the Suburban Warrior Podcast, the podcast that inspires, educates, and empowers women navigating the chaos of midlife, perimenopause, and menopause. I am your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, a holistic health coach and fierce advocate for women's wellness. With a background in nursing, the pharmaceutical industry, and integrative nutrition, I blend medical expertise with a holistic approach to help women heal naturally, integrate science-backed therapies, and take control of their health. After enduring my own 10-year battle with perimenopause symptoms, I've made it my mission to ensure that no woman has to suffer in silence. Join me as I share expert insights, real-life stories, and actionable strategies to help women reclaim their vitality, prioritize their well-being, and redefine midlife wellness with grit and grace. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of the Suburban Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, back this week with another amazing Suburban Warrior here to share her story with you. And before we get into this episode, I want to remind you all that we have a free download, the From Pause to Power Roadmap. It is free for you. It is every step of your perimenopausal journey, all the questions that you want to ask, all the information that you need to help you get through this really amazing time of life, but we certainly need all the information that we can get. So check out suburbanwarriorpodcast.com to download that for free. And also, while you're there, be sure to sign up for Pause Like a Warrior newsletter. Basically, that is the highlights of every podcast episode each week delivered right into your inbox. And I would love for you guys to get that. So sign up for that as well while you're there. And without further ado, we're going to welcome my guest this week. I am really excited because we're going to talk about a couple topics that we've not talked about on Suburban Warrior yet, which is rucking and CGMs. And if you don't know about CGMs yet, you're going to be really interested to learn about them because it is really this amazing device and indicator that we have for our overall metabolic health. So we're going to get into that. So this week I have on Kayla Girgen. She is a registered dietitian, a certified personal trainer, and founder of Sugar and Strength Academy, an online wellness community helping women balance blood sugar and build strength one step at a time. She blends real-life tools like continuous glucose monitoring, CGM, and accessible movement like rucking to help clients break free from diet extremes and feel strong, both physically and mentally. Kayla's approach centers on progress over perfection and creating results that work in real life. Her upcoming book, Ruck Fit, shares how rucking became a catalyst for reclaiming her physical and mental health, proving that fitness doesn't have to be complicated to be life-changing. Welcome to the podcast, Kayla.
Hello, Chrissy. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about my two favorite topics. Yes.
I know. I am so excited to have you on too because, first of all, rucking is something that I've heard the term a lot. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. It's an amazing fitness journey to be on. I've always been a little bit more interested about it, so I'm really excited to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of that today. And then, of course, we need to talk about CGMs because they're really such a helpful tool in your metabolic health. And now that they can be available to all of us, I think understanding why we should use them as a tool is really important. So before we get into these two awesome topics today, tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you got into this industry and why CGMs and rucking is so important to you.
Yeah, I think a lot of listeners, I always struggled with that all or nothing thinking. And I think initially in the nutrition department, like a lot of the research that I was doing kind of on, on the side, I was looking at women's fitness magazines and bodybuilding.com. And this is before we got all of our information from Instagram and TikTok. So that really led me down this path. And there was so much conflicting information. And I think it's certainly not like a information deficit. It's really how do we put some of those like things into practice or find out what works for you. And that's really what sent me on the mission to be a registered dietitian. For the longest time, I had no idea what a dietitian was. It was actually while I was studying to get my personal training certification, we were reading about the scopes of practice, and I was like, oh my gosh, actually, this is what I really want to do. So I ended up getting both credentials, which I still keep active because I think it's, movement and food and all of that like fits together. It's this big lifestyle thing. It's not one or the other. And I think the topics that we're talking about today, like CGM, for example, always struggling with like weight, body image, emotional eating. CGM was one of those things that really helped give me that visual data. And what I really appreciated about it is that it gave me a different perspective on food versus just calories, grams of protein, eating, according to a certain list or certain times of day. It really helped me find out what works for my body. And I think seeing how lifestyle impacts that too. So one thing that becomes really apparent on CGM is not just how food interacts with your body, but also things like stress or how one bad night of sleep can impact your blood sugar levels. So I love that you get so much more information versus just food. And that really helped me find like this gray area, I'll say, because when it comes to nutrition, it's always like black and white. Don't do this, don't eat that. And with CGM, I feel like, with a few different strategies, you can really learn how to find that balance. And as much as I don't always love that term, just because I think eating changes throughout the different seasons of life, CGM really helps, I think, find that personalized route. And on the fitness end, I think same with Rucking. I had always struggled with this, extremes, like spending 2 hours in the gym and then doing deep couch sitting. It seemed like there was nothing, in between. And it was setting these really like high benchmarks for myself, being a high achiever, very accomplished based. I feel like it was that all or nothing mindset. And I think with Rucking, for example, it was something that I really found that fit into my life and not the other way around. And I was really pleased how not only was I seeing physical benefits, but then also the mental benefits as well. And I think that's what really kept me coming back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people can really empathize with that all or nothing mindset. I think we go through that a lot in our lives, not only just with physical activity, but also when it comes to quote unquote diet, which I hate that word because really, what we are putting in our bodies shouldn't be a diet. It should be, what we're enjoying. But so I think a lot of people get that, and are in that same place. It's like they're always on this roller coaster of, I feel really great, I'm healthy, and then, oh, now I'm cheating. And I feel really great, where it should be more of just what am I enjoying and what works for me and what's fueling my body in the right way. So let's talk about CGMs. First of all, explain to my listeners, what is a CGM?
Yes, so CGM stands for continuous glucose monitoring or monitor. So it's a little device or sensor that you wear on the back of your arm. Some you can wear on the abdomen, but it's more, I would say, more often seen on the back of your arm. And initially it was for people with diabetes. So instead of doing, finger pricks several times throughout the day, a continuous glucose monitor is doing just that, watching your glucose in real time. So depending on the sensor, usually it's pulling a reading every 5 to 15 minutes. And then that transfers to an app on your phone in most cases. And you can really see those trends and what your blood sugar is doing in real time. So versus doing a finger prick every 15 minutes, which is not very comfortable. And even with that, you really miss a lot of the data too. So for example, I see a lot of clients that I'm working with that maybe they're using CGM for the first time. They've done finger pricks in the past. But even if you're doing that in 30-minute intervals after a meal, you can really miss some crucial data versus getting that data and seeing the trends over time or getting that continuous reading as well. So we're able to really troubleshoot in real time as well. And it's so motivating when you're really able to see like even how some of those like healthy foods or low calorie snacks, how they impact your blood sugar. And I'm a big proponent, like if we can pop the hood, see what your biology is doing and kind of tame those blood sugar levels, I feel like the psychology piece becomes a lot easier too. So once you're not white knuckling it and having these extreme cravings, I feel like it's a lot easier to work on things like emotional eating, or maybe you have the energy now to be able to do some of those healthy behaviors as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, the CGMs were really revolutionary for, especially diabetics and for, what they had to deal with and how they were testing their blood sugar. Explain to my listeners why are CGMs even remotely important at all to someone who is not diabetic?
Yes, I love this because I get that so often. Like, why are you wearing this? It's only for people with diabetes. And I would say, like, with diabetes in particular, it's not like it's something that happens overnight. It's a progressive disease. And what we're finding out is even like, some wonky blood sugars, if we're able to tackle that, like a little bit of prevention goes a long way. Yeah. And it can really, I think, help prevent some of those things like prediabetes, or even, making that jump from prediabetes to full-blown diabetes, because when you're able to stabilize your blood sugars, and I should say the goal isn't to have like a flatline glucose. So if you, use a CGM, or if you have some of that data, the goal isn't to have a flatline. That's just not healthy. What we want to minimize is some of those like big peaks. So if you think going from mountain peaks to rolling hills, that is going to, one, help you feel so much better. I have a lot of people who have more energy, they sleep better, and they feel like maybe they've tied some symptoms, like maybe feeling irritable, anxious, tired, I mentioned. You can really start to feel better, I think, from the inside out, and weight loss oftentimes becomes a byproduct of that. And then I would say on top of it too, inflammation is the cause of so many other diseases. And, high blood sugar is often correlated with bouts of inflammation too. So a lot of people, again, start to feel better and notice more joint pain in that sense too.
Yeah. So basically too, obviously people know that like if they sit and eat a bag of Skittles, they're going to have, a mountain peak of blood sugar. But the benefit of wearing a CGM and wearing it for like, whether it's like 2 weeks or whatever, it really helps you to identify within yourself certain foods that cause your body to spike, correct?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And I will say appetite is a big piece of that. So I often see where people are kind of have more grazing tendencies. So maybe they struggle making it an hour or two, without having a snack or something between meals. And we can see pretty quickly how they're on this blood sugar roller coaster. So maybe it's starting with, breakfast, that meal is spiking them, and all of a sudden they're trying to, play catch up, or, they're rebounding basically all day long. So if we can, maybe add more protein, fiber, healthy fats, things like that, and just have more of a well-rounded plate, that can change the trajectory of your day, really.
Yeah. Because like you said, the ideal is to not completely flatline. And sometimes you're going to have a bowl of ice cream and you're probably going to have the mountain spike. But the goal is to, on a daily basis, more often than not, to try to have more of a rolling hills blood glucose level versus having these continuous spikes and drops all throughout the day. Correct?
Yeah, you just feel awful.
Yeah.
And it is, when you don't feel good, you're not motivated to do some of those things like, get outside and go for a walk, or get a workout in, cook a healthy meal. You're reaching for, something that is going to bring your blood sugar back up. Usually it's highly processed carbs, it's sugar. So again, then you kind of get into this vicious cycle where your blood sugar is crashing. You want something quick to bring it back up, and then it's just back and forth all day long.
Yeah, no, so I did wear a CGM not that long ago, probably about 6 months ago, just because for my own health journey, really wanted to see, if there were certain foods that were spiking my blood sugar. And I just thought I only wore it for like 2 weeks, but I thought it was so helpful for me to really see what I was eating that was causing spikes. And it's not just what, it's when, right? When you eat certain foods, how you feel a certain way. And really now it's like I didn't even need the monitor to tell me, because your body does tell you, when it is feeling like you're up and then you're crashing, when you're up and you're crashing. And so it was really interesting exercise for me. And I also I loved it because it would also cause me to, like, after I ate, to do more activity, because I think that's a really, that was a tip that I heard, which we all know that if you are, can after a meal go out for a walk or do 30 squats, or just not like completely veg on your sofa after a meal. So I was a lot more cognizant of that if, my blood sugar was spiking and that sort of thing. And I just think it's an amazing tool that we have now, especially if you are looking to really clean up your diet and change your diet to really just open up your education on what's happening inside your body at the cellular level, because we really know now how important our metabolic health and how important blood sugar is, not just because of pre-diabetic, but like for our brain, overall brain health, for inflammation, for autoimmunity, like all of it really all starts at the cellular level. And this is just another tool that we have to really gauge what's happening there.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, you're really able, I think, to connect with that natural intuition again, because I think women have just been conditioned to, again, like maybe it's revert back to Weight Watchers or, eat according to a certain protocol, and we've really lost touch with just that natural intuition. And what I find is that when you have that visual data, when you can really connect, like, oh, when I eat A, I feel like B, and vice versa, it's really great, I think, to get that validation and see, like, okay, yes, maybe I can do a little tweaking to this meal for a better blood sugar response. It doesn't mean we're throwing it out the window altogether.
Right.
And that's what I really like too, is we have like certain meals where it's like, okay, let's like do a few different experiments with this. Like, we can make this work. Or like you said, adding a walk in afterwards. But I think it does really help notice, connecting again, like energy. If you're hitting a, wall in the afternoon, or you're really struggling in the mornings. And yes, when you connect those dots, it's a game changer.
Yeah. And it really helps with sort of this old approach of calories in, calories out.
Yes.
Right. Which is, which we did for so long, and it's just not helpful. It's not what works, right? What's meaningful now is the nutrient density of our food. How clean is it? What are the sources of the food that we're putting in our bodies? Is it processed? Is it not? How much sugar is in it? And how much, sugar are we eating throughout the day? I think it really helps to highlight the importance of all of those other details versus just calories in, calories out, which is really the rhetoric that we were told for so long. It's the only thing that mattered.
Yes. And I think food aside, you're really able to see some of those things, like I had mentioned, sleep and stress. And I think those are really easy to put off to the side, especially when you don't have the data. So again, for example, you can count calories, you can count grams of protein, but you can't really like count your sleep. Maybe if you're wearing some sort of like monitor that's collecting data, but stress, especially, we don't have anything to really have objective data, but this gives you something when you're able to see, oh my gosh, I had a stress spike. Like, you didn't even eat and it looks like your blood sugar's skyrocketing. It gives you, again, some of that data where you're able to intervene on some of those things that are otherwise hard to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's because it doesn't even exercise cause a spike. Like, after you, if I remember correctly, I feel like it was like maybe right after you exercise, obviously because your body is putting glucose in your blood to help activate the muscles, and it all makes sense. But that's like a little bit of a stress response. But then when I saw it happening when I wasn't exercising, I was like, oh wait, I guess I'm stressed. What happened? Did it helps you tune into your body in a different way than if you didn't know what was happening.
Exactly. I had a client, she messaged me. She's like, did you see she had gone into a really stressful meeting that she was running, and just having that data, she's like, okay, so after the meeting, I clocked out for a little bit, went for a walk around the block, and just kind of took it easy the rest of the afternoon. She's like, without that, I would have just powered through, put my head down, get things ready for the kids and the family. But again, having that, she was able to pivot a little bit and take care of her body in a healthier way.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if someone's interested in, wearing a CGM, what would you say is like the appropriate time frame to wear it for?
Yeah, I tend to see a couple camps of people, I'll say. So I see one camp who they love the data, they love the accountability. So one thing that's nice is I can actually tap into like my clients' data. So they love knowing that I can see the things. Again, it's accountability. We can also troubleshoot in real time. On the other end, I see some folks who, they're good with like 2 to 4 sensors. You're going to learn the most from those first couple sensors, especially. And then we can kind of build a framework from that. Like you said, maybe it's adding a walk after dinner, for example, or these little strategies that you can carry on with you, whether you're wearing a sensor or not. And I find that sometimes that data, I don't know if you experience this, but sometimes it can be a lot to know what to do with it. Or if you know that you're going to have something that is going to spike you, but it's worth it. I think sometimes that anxiety that comes with eating can be taken to the extreme as well. So I really like CGM to find like, what are those worth it foods? Like I know that I'm going to send my blood sugar to the stratosphere, but I'm going to enjoy this meal so much.
Yeah.
So right. I think it really helps kind of tease that out. So I'll say that some people love the accountability. They want to wear one 24/7. Some people, they're good with just wearing a few sensors. So I would say for most people, like getting, like you said, the first sensor that couple weeks, I find that sometimes that's not enough. So I would say like a month, maybe 6 weeks is a pretty good, time frame, because I think sometimes it loses the novelty, and then you stop maybe tracking some of those things, and it's a little harder to, put that data to good use if you don't have the, timeline to match it up with.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you say that, I wore it for a month because I did two. I did 2 sensors, and I think they were 2 weeks each. And yeah, I mean, I loved getting the data personally, but then I could take that and run with it based on, I mean, obviously it's what I do as a health coach. I knew what to do with the data that I was getting. And I also appreciated the fact that I did know it was going to spike my blood sugar, and I still was going to eat the bowl of ice cream because, you only live once, but you know what's going to spike it, and you do that in moderation. It's not like I was eating a bowl of ice cream every night, but once a week, there you go.
Exactly. Yes.
Let that mountain peak, baby, because I'm eating it.
Exactly. And I think it, like you said, it's moderation, and it helps like versus it being a nightly routine, or again, like if you notice, okay, it's going to, maybe mess up my sleep, but I'm willing to take that trade-off tonight. I think you're going to have those circumstances for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, okay, so now let's talk about the physical exercise part of you monitor your blood sugar with the CGMs. You see what activity does. Activity can lower your blood sugar, control it more. So that's why we should all be moving our bodies the best that we can as much as possible, especially since we are all sitting a lot at our desk jobs every day. So we really have to be very cognizant of our movement and making sure that we're getting as much movement as possible. So let's talk about rucking. First of all, explain what rucking is.
Yes. So rucking, simply put, is walking with weight. So basically, you're going for a walk. The only difference is you've got a backpack, you've got some weight in it. In some cases, too, I feel like I see weighted vests are becoming increasingly popular, too. There are, I would say, a couple differences between the two that we can talk about. Yeah. But compared to a walk, you're going to get better cardiovascular benefit. So just having a little bit more weight on you. It's weight bearing. So thinking about women, especially in middle age, it can help with bone density, and it can help with muscle as well. So just, preserving muscle, but then also building some muscle, too.
Yeah. Yeah. So especially in my demographic, which is women in midlife, walking with a weighted vest has become more and more popular because of, really just trying to spare our muscle depletion, trying to grow muscle, trying to stabilize bone density, working with our joints and joint pain, hips, knees, you name it. So I think that the weighted vest has become really popular because of the multiple benefits that it has. But rucking has been around for a very long time, right?
Yes. So, I mean, we've been doing it before we had wheels. We had to get things from point A to point B, and we were that vehicle.
Yeah. Exactly. Now we just have to put the weighted vest on in order for it to be rucking. But let's talk a little bit about, well, first, let's talk about the benefits of wearing weight while you walk. I mean, you just mentioned a few, but what are the benefits of putting weight on while we go for a walk?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's easy to incorporate into your routine. So if we're talking from like a functional standpoint, a lot of people have that walking routine. Maybe you're taking the kids out for a walk, meeting a friend, taking the dogs, for example. It's like you can throw on a little bit of extra weight. It's weight bearing. It's low impact. So you were talking about the joints compared to something like running. It's so much nicer on your joints, and you can get a similar cardiovascular burn too. I will say personally, one thing that I like compared to something that is higher intensity like running or HIIT workouts, I feel like rucking does not spike my appetite like some of those. So just like the low impact nature of it. And, after menopause, when estrogen drops, that can mean loss of bone density. Rucking can help counter that. So it is weight bearing since you are wearing that extra weight, but I will say that it's not a replacement for picking up weights. So you still have to, do some formal strength training, for example, but rucking can certainly help as well. It also helps get us outside. So like you had said, it's just like we're always inside, and it really helps just spend more time in nature. And when you're looking at from a functional standpoint, I would say when you're wearing something like a ruck, which is that backpack, compared to something like a weighted vest, for example, a ruck is actually going to have some more posture benefits. So it's going to pull your shoulders back compared to like a weighted vest, for example. You don't get as many posture benefits just because that weight is distributed different on your torso. So I will say that you do get more posture benefits, which is helpful, especially since we're, hunched over our laptops all day.
Yeah, absolutely. So rucking doesn't need to be like going uphill or like climbing a mountain kind of
right.
thing.
It's just walking with weight. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah,
Yes.
can do it anywhere. Okay. And do you think that there are benefits to, I know you just mentioned posture, but are there benefits to walking with like I think it's called a rucksack, right? A rucksack,
Yes.
which is like a backpack versus a weighted vest?
I would say if you're going for the posture benefits, yes. And I will say that if you are planning to scale weight up, like one thing with a weighted vest, usually you're purchasing like a 12 or 16 pound vest, and there's not really a whole lot of option to add weight without buying a whole new vest. One thing that I like about a rucksack is you can easily swap or add in different weight plates. So I think that it has a little bit more scalability in that sense, where you're able to really increase that weight load without buying a whole new system.
Right.
Yes. Plus you can like pack your snacks and all of that in there too, especially if you're going out for like a longer ruck, for example.
How long are you rucking for?
Yeah, it depends. Like sometimes we'll have group rucks where we're rucking for like an hour, maybe up to 2 hours.
Okay.
I actually just did, Go Ruck is one company that makes equipment. They just did a women's rucking retreat in Costa Rica, which was amazing. Wow, this was like their first women's retreat. And I mean, we had some rucks in the jungle that were probably 3, maybe 4 hours long. But yeah, that was a whole different challenge. But I would say on average, it's probably, for me personally, I would say maybe an hour a day, or several times a week. So
yeah. And then what kind of weight? Well, I want to ask 2 questions. What weight do you start with? And then I want to know what weight you use.
Yes. And I will
Because I'm
say,
sure you're not at the starter level.
yeah, I would say most people can comfortably start with like 10, maybe 15 pounds, depends on your fitness level.
Okay.
And I would say getting comfortable with that, it's really hard. Like it's really easy to want to, push harder because we want to like feel it, right?
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I noticed is it changes your posture. So again, especially if you're wearing that weight in a pack, like a rucksack, it's going to pull your shoulders back. I had like a little kind of cranky shoulder just because I'm getting straightened out. So you might find that you have like these little cricks and, new little, pinches, for example. So that's normal when you're getting straightened out. But I would say 10 to 15 pounds is great. Maybe do that for a few weeks or so, and then, add in 2 to 5 pound increments. So you can get really creative, like add in some textbooks or a bag of rice, for example. It doesn't have to be a formal weight plate. You can use what you've got on hand, like an old backpack, throw in some textbooks, go for a walk, and now you're rucking. Me personally, I would say my base weight is like 20 pounds. So typically, if I'm going, like, I will do that. If I'm maybe doing like a short little loop and it's flat, I'll go 25 or 30. So if I want to, increase the challenge a little bit, I do try to vary it a little bit. If I'm going longer or I know there's going to be a lot of elevation, so I'm kind of changing the intensity, with the weight aside, I'll scale back a little bit. So then maybe it's 15, for example. So you don't have to do the same weight every ruck, for example. And I would say like it's good to vary it up a little.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes, so I have a weighted vest that I wear sometimes and sometimes I don't when I walk. And there's no doubt that I definitely feel the difference the next day, mostly in my hips, honestly, when I wear the weighted vest versus not. Do you find that happens with other people too, or is it just
I would
me?
say personally, yes. Like my hips get super tight, so it's great to, I think, stretch, especially like right afterwards. I'm terrible at stretching. I'm so bad, but I think certainly like getting some.
Time. I do love stretching though. I do.
Yeah, so I would say I noticed that too, and that's just the change again in posture. I will say too, like I notice some soreness in my feet, so don't underestimate your footwear. Just having. Maybe you might need something that's a little bit sturdier. So compared to like a normal walking shoe, I like something that's got a sturdier bottom. So like a hiking boot, for example, I noticed that changed the game a little bit too. You think you're kind of starting with your feet as your foundation, and you might have to just rethink a walk versus a ruck in terms of footwear.
Yeah, actually, that's a really interesting point, especially if you're not hiking up a mountain, because I think people think that, oh, maybe that's why I thought of rucking, like you're literally hiking up a mountain.
Yeah.
So, it's I think I would think of wearing more of a hiking shoe doing that, but not just like walking around my neighborhood. But if you're carrying enough weight, you're saying a hiking shoe is a little bit better, more support.
I would say that's my personal preference. I do see when it comes to footwear, like it really ranges. Some people like a cross trainer. Some people like a regular tennis shoe. Some people like hiking boots. It tends to range. But I just wouldn't underestimate or, throw some weight in a pack and then go for 4 miles. Like keep it short. Just see, like you said, you're going to notice maybe just a little bit of change in your gait, and that's going to maybe reflect in some like tightness or soreness the following day.
Yeah. Okay. And who was rucking for?
I would say there's nobody that can't ruck. I would say this is one of the reasons why I love it, is because it's very accessible. So regardless of age, I feel like age and fitness level, I'll say if you can walk, you can ruck more often, and you can add, weight, you can remove weight, you can do it on flat surfaces, you can add incline, you can really do this in a way that works for you, I think, and meets you at your fitness level. And you can easily scale it up. So if you feel like you're starting to see maybe more muscle gains or some, more endurance when it comes to your cardiovascular health, you can add weight, or again, maybe find a hill or a new trail. There's really easy ways that you can do it, and it doesn't cost anything. You don't need a gym membership. You don't have to figure out the logistics of getting there. You can do it right in your neighborhood. So I think it's very accessible and really breaks down some of those barriers that keep people from working out in the first place, because we want to find like this perfect routine, and if we can't execute it to a T, then we quit before we even start. And I feel like with rucking, you're just throwing the weight on, you're going for a walk. It's that simple.
Yeah. And I do think with women in midlife, we're being told a lot of messages now to stay healthy and thrive during this time, which is eat 100 grams of protein a day, get out and lift all these weights, and walk 10,000 steps every day. And, it's literally, we're getting like all this list of things that we should be doing each and every day. Get out in nature, get sunlight in your eyes, ground yourself in the grass every day.
Like we don't have enough stuff to do.
Like we don't have enough to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, check.
Right.
But I do think something like rucking is a wonderful way to achieve a lot of checking these boxes all at once. It does get us out in nature, which you mentioned, which I think is huge. I think that is one thing that we don't talk about enough. Honestly, I mean, we talk about lifting weights and walking, but it's when we do that outside in nature, where we are meant to be doing things all day, which we're not because we're in air conditioned buildings all day, but, or heated buildings, whatever, all day. I think just getting out in nature, being in the sunlight, being with trees and birds and hearing it, and the effect that we're getting on our senses and at the cellular level is something that, it's not something we can tangibly, measure, but it's a huge boost to our health. So when I think you're rucking, you're able to do that, and you're getting fresh air and you're getting sunshine and you're, one with nature in a way. And while you're still able to sort of do a weight bearing exercise, get the cardiovascular benefits. So it really is something, even if you start slow and low, I think there's a lot of ways that you can start to see the benefits at any fitness level, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think too, like as a coach and entrepreneur, it's like helps get through those creative blocks, I think too. Like you said, when you're actually going without a phone or earbuds in, it's uncomfortable at first when you're like alone in the woods with your thoughts, but it's really, I think you come out on the other end just with, oh my gosh, now I feel like I've, have an idea about this. And I have another client, she's just like, all my greatest ideas come to me when I'm on a ruck. It's like her way to decompress. It is her, hour away from her kids where she can just really kind of process thoughts, because I think oftentimes we just don't take that time or, give ourselves that space either. And it can be, I think, like you said, it can be emotional. You can get, check those physical boxes too. It's really like a, Swiss Army knife of, health in many different ways.
So that's interesting. Let's talk about that for a minute about, do you always rock without your phone or headphones?
I've been doing it a lot more often. I will say I keep my phone on me because, I have to track, but
yeah, right.
Because if you don't track it, it doesn't count, right?
Yeah. And who can actually ever leave their phone at home? I mean, let's be honest.
But I do keep it like this morning, for example, I, did a little 5K ruck and I stowed it in my pack, zipped it away and, no earbuds or anything. And it was just wonderful. I feel like it took me a little bit to get into it, but 5 minutes in, I feel like you're just kind of looking around and you're, you don't realize you take it all for granted sometimes. And like you said, it just feels so good to get outside, get that sunlight in the eyeballs. And, I'm not a very religious person, but I would say like nature really helps me just connect and ground a little bit. And I feel like just helps with that, emotional and spiritual health too. And I just come back, a better person for my husband, for my clients, for family. I feel like I'm just a better listener and, can just show up better in other areas of life.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone wanted to start rucking, where should they start?
I would say grab an old backpack. You've probably got one around the house, and find a couple old textbooks. You can throw them in there. If you don't have that, maybe you're looking in your, pantry for something odd. It could be like cans of beans or a bag of rice. I used a 10-pound dumbbell and wrapped it up in a towel when I started rucking, threw it in an old backpack and went for a walk. But you might find out pretty quickly, like a 10-pound dumbbell doesn't feel very great, like poking, against your back, or it might sit a little awkward.
Yeah.
And then you can always upgrade. Like once you've maybe proven to yourself, you can buy on Amazon or other companies like GoRuck make like cast iron weight plates. So they're like what you would imagine in the gym, the kind of round weight plates, but they're in rectangular form. And those just like slide right into like the laptop spot on a backpack, or like a rucksack, for example, is going to have a specific pocket to hold that weight. Because I will say that when you are putting the weight in your pack, you don't want it like banging around. You want it secured. You want it high and tight just for max comfortability and to help prevent injury too.
Okay. Any other equipment that you need?
I would say I mentioned shoes. Yeah, I would say just kind of thinking about shoes, but maybe keeping that first ruck too to, no more than a mile or two, depending on your current fitness level. Don't, try and go do a 5K or, do any PRs. It's just getting used to having that weight on your back and letting your body acclimate too, because as you get stronger, you can add more weight. So you really have to kind of put your ego aside, I would say at first, and ease into it too.
Yeah. And how many times a week do you think you should be doing it?
I would say like for newbies, maybe it's a couple times a week, and
Okay.
you certainly don't have to, turn every walk into a ruck. So maybe I think that's important to recognize too, because once you add the weight, sometimes it's hard to pull it off. But, thinking about like women at different points of their cycle, or even just like you had mentioned, exercise is another stressor on the body. I think more stress, even in the form of exercise, isn't always better. So if it is one of those days where you're just getting out for a walk to clear your head, that is just fine too. Every walk doesn't have to be a ruck, but I would say for most people, maybe it's a couple times a week to start. And, if you're varying it up a little bit, you could do it, up to, almost 6 to 7 days a week, depending.
Yeah.
But I would say don't ruck hard every day. I will say that.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
you're not
right.
going for a PR every day. That's just not healthy.
What's a PR?
Like a personal record. Yes.
A personal record.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're trying to add weight every single day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Next thing you know, you have like 70 pounds on your back.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah,
it can
we-
definitely get taken too far.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The other thing that you mentioned too, because you went on the retreat, like it sounds like there's communities of rucking. And that is something I think that could be really helpful too for people that are looking, like some people really enjoy group fitness and they find that they thrive more in that environment, or, it's a community building thing besides just doing something that's good for you. So there's probably like local rucking communities, right?
Yes. Like my husband and I started a ruck club, for example. You can search on Facebook for groups. Go Ruck. They actually started with events. So they have, I think, over 500 ruck clubs maybe that you can search on their website and find something local to you. But as you mentioned, the social fitness is so key. And I think as women and people pleasers, like it's great to have that group accountability, because once you, start showing up on a regular basis, people will notice when you're gone. So I think that added layer of accountability and the social component helps. And one great thing about rucking is you can all show up and, depending on their trail, you can do more or less weight, and everybody can, I think, move as a group, but still get the workout they want. So if you have a friend, even for example, that, maybe walks really slow and they slow you down, so you're hesitant to reach out, it's like you can throw some weight on and still get a great workout and walk at her pace, for example. So I really love that you're still able to get out and kind of even it out, and everybody gets what they want out of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you also have a book coming out in the new year, correct?
I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, January 6th that will release. It is available right now on Amazon for pre-order if you search RuckFit Kayla Girgen. Awesome. And really, I start by talking about a lot of the benefits, how we've really acclimated to this comfort culture versus, pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, but going deeper into some of the physical and psychological benefits that we talked about today. Really breaking down gear, how to get started. There's training plans in there. So everything from, almost like a couch to 5K to 25K training plans too. So if you feel like you've got a pretty established base, or you've already started rucking or walking with weight and really want to challenge that, you can turn, any sort of foot race into a rucking race too.
Wow.
And then I talk about nutrition too. So I had to put in some nutrition protocols. There's exercises too on how to actually use your ruck as resistance for resistance training. So you don't need any sort of gym membership. You can use your ruck to do squats or, do all kinds of different body movements as well. And we talked about mobility, and there are some stretches and foam rolling in there. And then we kind of wrap up with mindset too.
It's very important.
Yes.
Always need the mindset, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. We'll be sure to link that in our show notes for pre-order on Amazon, and congratulations. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Kayla, for being here today and for sharing with us. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think more and more people are talking about continuous glucose monitors, and I think what they do along with rucking, but it's really about putting health in our hands, right? It's about being our own advocates, understanding that we have control over our bodies in so many different ways. And, the more that we learn and the more knowledge that we know about how our bodies are working and what our bodies need, the more that we will thrive in every stage of our life. So thank you so much for being here today. It was awesome to have you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And thank you guys for listening. As always, I really appreciate you being a part of the Suburban Warrior community where we are redefining midlife wellness with grit and grace. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. So please drop us a comment, leave us a review, and be sure to tune in again next week for the next awesome Suburban Warrior story. And we'll see you next week.